1, 2.
You know, when we finished last night, I decided I just
I'm looking for people from X-Editor.
kept walking. Made it back to the
If do you see X? Oh, yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having traveled in the street of Prague yesterday for part of you to end up in a closed bar. Shit happens. But anyway, most of you are there, I think. That's what I saw. So yesterday was the demo jam. It seems like the Netherlands still have the end and still winning. So I think the other country have to find a solution to stop this, right? Okay, it's not Eurovision, but almost, right? So thank you very much. And the second day is opening, and for that we are going to introduce you the sponsors. We did part of the sponsor yesterday, and a very important sponsor today too. And I'm going to give the microphone to our sponsor from the beginning, which is George.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Welcome.
Is this working?
I think you just have to unmute it, right?
Thank you, Mohammed.
Yeah,
That's better. Good morning. It's always very difficult to come back to the conference in the last day. So I'm happy to see so many of you here the first hour. We are very happy to be able to support XMLPrague again this year. Congratulations to Peter for winning the demo jam last night. And also to my colleague Octavian, who was, I think, on the second position. Or and you know, I was thinking that because we sponsored and all that, we sponsored also the demo jam. I expected that we won the prize.
Yeah, but if you won, the prize would have been a lifetime license of Oxygen XML. So no interest.
Anyway, Octavian was prepared to donate the prize in case he won to the company.
Or he'd be fired, yes.
But it was not only Octavian involved, so it was a collective effort, and we hired also the previous winner.
As a consultant.
Yes.
That's why you lose.
So we were very close anyway. So it was really fun, and I really enjoyed being here, and hope you are also enjoying the conference as much as I do, and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, George. One of our sponsor also is Antenna House that did the successful pre-conference. If I have a good recollection of 2 days ago, which is already far away in my head. So, Mike, please.
Again, Antenna House is very pleased to be a sponsor this year. This is our second year sponsoring. Happy to see all the people who survived last night and made it here this morning. And thank you to the organizers for really putting together another great event this year.
Thank you. And one of our sponsor also is related to the web and to JavaScript, which looks like the fancy things those days. So X-Editor.
Hi. Yeah, we're very happy to be sponsored from this event too. It's actually my first year.
Okay.
It was really
Welcome.
nice. Yesterday, the demo jam was very funny evening. Still have a bit of dry mouth. Maybe I had a bit too much beer yesterday, but yeah.
Too much, impossible.
Yeah, but I'm here in time, so I guess it's okay. I hope you're having a nice day today, and yeah, thank you for being a sponsor. And it's really a nice event.
Super. So
Thank you
make
very
more
much.
people come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we will start with first presentation. If you have been attending XMLPrague 8 years ago, probably you will see this. It's something similar, familiar to you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Is it okay? Hello? Yeah.
So 8 years ago, there have been presentation about the X definition, and Václav and Jindřich will tell you today how they improved the technology over the last 8 years, I suppose.
It's actually, it's more than 8 years. X definitions, I think, exists about 12 years. And it's used in the company Syntea as a tool for validation, processing, and construction of XML data. I think this is one of the important features of X definitions, that it's possible to describe the structure of XML, including the data types and so on, but also you can put there the code. In fact, it's some kind of programming language. The code which is executed, invoked during the processing in different situations or events when the source code or the data is parsed. So let's say in the beginning of the element, at the end when you finish the processing, if the parser finds the end of a list of attributes, then another event is that it's processed the body or the child nodes of element, and then you can say, well, I would like to do something when the parsing was finished. And the code you can write to the value of attributes or text nodes in the form of the language which we call script of X definition. The script of X definition is very similar to, let's say, Java programming language and so on. So, well, what really happened from this last 12 years? First, we changed the name, and we pushed here the dash. And then we switched from 2.0 version to 3.1. We improved the interconnection, the connection between the external environment, like the Java environment from which the X definitions are called or invoked. You can declare Java methods, and you can, from the code, access the external objects. You can describe how to process different kind of errors, and so on and so on. There are now more possibilities of processing and construction of XML data. You can even to connect the X definition to some database, including we just checked it, we are not using in the company the XML database, but I checked it with exist, and it's possible to call database to call some statements from database from the code of X definition. We implemented all the XML scheme types, including all facets and restrictions which you can describe. And we implemented also the large set of validation methods. So there are not only methods like in XML scheme, but we have also many of methods which you can use or describe the value, including the extended Bacchus now form, and so on. You can, of course, use also the external methods for validation, which is very important. Imagine that you have some data, and the part of data are some code lists or some items from the database. You can check whether the value is present in the database data and so on. For the processing of large data, and we have really very large data we are processing, many gigabytes, it's implemented something what we call stream mode. The company Syntea is making the process of application for processing of the data from the insurance companies for car accidents. So the data include a lot of images of pictures which are made by police protocols and so on, and the data which are processed have many gigabytes. So it's impossible to do it just in the memory. We also implemented something what we call the unique items. It's something like the ID in the scheme, but it's implemented much more in details. You can declare the scope of the unique value, and you can check whether the unique value is referenced from some other part of data. Very important feature is the possibility to generate from X definition something what we call X component. It is the Java code which represents the XML structure described in X definition. It's something like JAXB, but it's a little bit more than JAXB. My colleague will explain it in detail, so I will skip this explanation. I see here also Michael K, so I must say that we have also implemented possibility to call X-query, of course, if you have the correct license of Saxonia. And we are now experimenting. It's not finished, it's just in the development. We created something like alpha version of processing of JSON data. The advantage is that you can describe the JSON data with a X definition, and it's valid either for JSON form of data or for XML data. And we have some tool to convert JSON data to XML and vice versa. So to the tutorial which possible to learn how X definitions work. So let's have very simple data. I think it's not necessary to speak about that. Let's have some inventory and then some books there. You can see that you may yes, which we required, but the Bible is edited many times and so on, so it's not relevant, and also it's hard to say who is author of Bible, so this can be omitted. So how looks the X definition? So I am a little bit repeating what I told 8 years ago, but I suppose there are many people who were not here present, so I tried to just a very simple example to explain what it is. So here is something let's call the header of X definition. You describe here what is the root element. You can have here many, many models. This description we call model of an element. And you can compose the project from many, many, many X definitions. In our application, there are maybe hundreds of X definitions. So each X definition has some name. So we can refer from one X definition to another one. You can refer to models or to some data types and so on. So we use for the occurrence of data, we use the notation from the regular expression, or the plus means one and more repetitions. Here, asterisk means 0 or none or more repetitions and so on. And if you look to this, what we call model, it's very simple to design it. You just replace the so as you see, the published item or published is the optional. It's not required. If you don't write anything, it's required. So it's not necessary to write it. So complete X definition from the example above may look like this. You can see that you can declare some message or some method, which we call here. You can declare even some variables. So if you look to this example, so it's not here, but it's an example which I can show on the internet if you want. Ah, yeah, here, yeah, book. The code which is invoked at the end of element processing. So if you process book, at the end of processing, you can increase the count of the number of books you processed and so on. If here is the section of the code which is called if the item is not present. So if none of books, because there is no book, you can call the section of the script which invokes this message. It will be the no books information. Let's show how it works if we really execute it. So it's not, yeah, it's here. So it is exactly the example from the slide, maybe with one small difference that ISBN is here described as the string with some facets from the facets are encoded as with a percentage sign and the name of facet, and here is the value of facet. So if you execute it, you will see that here are the messages which are written on the output. It's from the methods invoked in different parts of that. So let's see what will happen if we make some error or error. What happens if we make just this? So the book, which is required to be at least once, is not present. No. So you have you can see that there is a message notebook, no books. Why? No, because we have here this on absence. If we delete this on absence, it will be generated the normal error. And you can see that here is error. It's a message, error message automatically generated, and it's saying that the book is missing, and it's on the line 2 and in this position and so on. So it's just a very simple example how it works. So I promised to say something about large data. So what to do if you have very large data? You can simply declare that some items which are processed you don't want to process, and you don't want to put them to the output. So we'll simply write ignore it. It seems for this example funny, but if you imagine that police protocols include many of photo pictures and so on, so for the processing of data is a very important feature. Another possibility is just to describe, this is just a comment, just to describe what you need. You simply don't write what you don't need, and you put here the option that you should ignore all what is not described. So it's quite practical feature. You can just drag from some data what you need, and everything else is forgotten. If we don't put here this option, it would be an error.
Jsou baterky vybité.
Aha, battery.
Baterky potřebujeme. No, dobrý, on to vydrží chvilku.
For a while it will work, so I have assistant. So you can just specify here in the script of this book, of this element, this model, you can say that it should be forgotten. So what it means that after it's processed, it's removed from the, released from the memory, and it's not.
Just keep it at a just.
Yeah. Okay. So it is another possibility. This is, I think, very important feature because you can use it together with something what we call. Is it already okay? Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, for them. You can use so-called stream mode. From the outside environment, you specify the stream to which the data are recorded. So the data are processed before it's forgotten, written to the stream, to the output stream, and in the processing, in the process, it's the data after the model was processed is forgotten. It's released from memory. So it allows to process very, very large data. It's maybe not so nice. It's, you have to specify it. Anyway, it's very readable. And in the reality, very often you know that after the processing of this model, you can forget it. So, few words about JSON. So let's have our example recorded as JSON. So what kind of problems is with JSON? Of course, the first one problem is that in JSON, the named tuples or the named values, the name can be any kind of string, which is crazy, but it's true. So what to do with that? It's, you can design very, very simple algorithm which is able to convert the JSON name to the name which is valid as the name of XML and vice versa. The other problems with JSON is the specification of array. As you know, in JSON you can put array into array, you can have array of arrays and so on. So you need some auxiliary information in XML to be able to process it. And another problem is that the map is not exactly what are attributes in the XML, and what to do with that. So in our example, how we can describe it, because all the arrays which are in the above example are in fact the child nodes of an element, so we don't need to write here anything else. You just describe that some types which we implemented, which are exactly the types from JSON. There is also the general type we call J value. So J number is in fact number, but it's either it's both the integer and float and so on. So if we convert it to yeah. The problem is that I forgot to put here the array, JSON array. Well, if you convert it to XML, you don't need to put in our case, you don't need to put there some auxiliary data. I'm very sorry. It's not the. I changed this presentation and I forgot to put it there. Anyway, we have the auxiliary items like J with some JSON namespace, some array item, and so on. And in most of cases, you can simply, in the algorithm of optimizing of the process, you can simply remove it. So reasonable JSON structures are converted to quite normal XML. So now let's speak a little bit about the X definition and database. As you can see, in the database we implemented some special objects in the script, so you can declare the service. The service is something like connection in the JDBC. Anyway, you can specify the type of database. It can be also written here exist or something else. And you create the connection, which we call service, and then you can have the statement, you can execute this statement, and in this example it's demonstrated another very important and very nice feature of X definition, that you can put to the script also the section which we call create. The X definitions are possible to call in the are possible to invoke in the mode we call the construction mode. And then, if you have no data, you just process this X definition. Everything here is omitted, and it's executed just this statement or this code. And as you see here, this is created from the result of this query. This query creates some table, and rows of this table are creating the book. It's some kind of iterator. My colleague is giving me signs that I should give him floor. So here is described another example with this database. So I just wanted to demonstrate here that X definition is an excellent tool which you can use in many ways. So please, Jindřich will continue. I give you this crazy thing. Let's hope the battery is okay. Aha, já jsem to právě rozbil.
Hello?
No to vypadlo tady z toho. Jo, už to je.
Je to zapnutý, se to vyplo.
Yeah. Good morning. Do you hear me? No. It's okay. It's working? Yeah? Okay. So, good morning everyone, again. I'm here to say a few words about X-component. X-component is one part, a new part of X definition. It's a part which is related with marshalling and marshalling. And when I came to Syntea, we made many small programs which communicate between each other with messages in XML format. And I get XML in X definition, and my boss said to me to write it in JAX-B and make marshalling and marshalling. And when I do that, Vašek came and said, "What are you doing?" I did something similar, but I said, "I know, but it's impossible to use." He said, "Okay, let's do it again and do what you really need." And this is how X-component became a very useful tool for marshalling and marshalling with X definition. Now, X-component is a standard class, Java class, which has interface X-component, and because it is interface, it can be an extension of any superclass or implements any other interfaces. And the structure of X-component is related to the X definition model. That means every element in X definition and class fields are and attributes in X definition are class fields in X-component. And every sub-element is another X-component, so it's the structure the same as in XML. And in this point of view, every X definition has an image in Java in its own objects. So one quick example. Here you see a very short and very simple example. You have two elements, which are nested, and the result, when we created X component from this example, looks like this. Here's the string, which is the attribute in X component. Here's omitting the construction and implementation X component, which provides the to XML and from XML conversion. And the contract, which is nested element, is also here. And with the date and every implementation of date, you can imagine there are 4 implementations. I showed here only 2 because of the length of the example. came here. And X components are generated automatically. So in every compilation, the X components are created again. And it is very useful because when you changed the X definition, then you change your own code, and and every change is propagated into your code, and you can by compiler catch some errors, which is useful because it's in compile time and not in runtime. And the last, yes. As I said, X component can be descendant of an arbitrary class, and you can change the name of getters and setters also, and these getters and setters can be in the superclass, so we can take there some additional logic to make some other actions you want to do. And you can create an interface from X component and from X definition. I showed a short example from the previous. This is an interface created from the example of contract. I show you how the contract looks like, and the interface looks like here, like this. And the last thing I want to say, that we use X components for a few years in Syntea for every communication between each program we wrote, and it's how Vašek said, it's thousands of X components, it's thousands of X definitions, it's thousands of X components, and
Jste si to dneska vybrali, ano, tak mám rád ten druhý.
Já už končím, takže...
No, to ještě povědět.
The last thing I want to say is that we use it for a few years, and the messages are in millions per year, tens of millions and hundreds of millions per 10 years. We used X definitions, and millions we used X components. So the code we use is reliable and is very useful for our company, and it makes, for us, for developers, the life much easier. So I think this is our. Thank you very much for your attention, and now it's time for your questions. Please come here.
Okay, thank you very much for presentation. We are sorry for technical troubles, but I have been told there have been fresh batteries in both receivers, but probably some dark energy quickly came here. So do you have some questions? Over there.
Václav, you spoke about the processing of the elements, and you showed us code, what to do when processing it. But certainly often you have not only one processing of the input. So do you distinguish maybe named modes or something like that? Like processing for this purpose, processing for that purpose?
Yeah. It's a good and important question. It is another one feature of X definition, that you can describe one X definition as a template for the others, and you can refer to it and to say that you implement this structure. So you can describe many different processing variations with one reference to one X definition, which is used just to describe the structure and maybe types of values, and you can process it in different ways. So it's another section of the code you can describe it. Oh, yes. Another question? Běž tam, abych slyšel. Well, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Interesting stuff. I had not seen X definition 8 years ago, so I'm pleased to have seen the snippets of it. I'm curious, have you any the capability to provide validation and editing support not of the XML documents the X definition describes, but rather of the X definition itself?
I don't hear,
okay.
So I'm going here. I'm very sorry.
No worries, we just cover that thing up. I'm wondering if you have, if the suite you have includes the capability to provide support to edit and validate the X definition document. Which
it's a very good and difficult question. Well, of course, we would like to have something like Oxygen to be able to edit X definitions. We started to work on some plugins to NetBeans and so on, but unfortunately, we have not enough of energy and people to do it. Anyway, I made something very, very primitive and simple that you can compile the X definition or set of X definition in the mode when you say that you want to debug the source code. So it's independent on any kind of IDE environment, but it is with the tools of Swing and some Java possibilities. It displays you the X definition. It points you where is an error, and you can edit and modify it. But it's very primitive. I think it's quite important thing to make it. So thank you.
So I don't see any other questions, or are there any? Okay, so thank you very much again. And the next speaker will be John Snelson.